Well, thank you everybody for coming together this morning and helping us spread some of the news of important consumer protections that were achieved in 2019, particularly SB 616, which goes into effect on Tuesday, September 1st. And I'm pleased to be joined with some great sponsors, not movie stars, but people that care about working folks, care about the law, who walk the halls of the Capitol here in Sacramento on behalf of the underrepresented folks. Joining me today is Jessica Bartholow, who's a policy advocate of the Western Center on Law and Poverty. I have Ted Mermin, who's the director of the California Low Income Consumer Coalition, and Sharon Djemal, who's the director of the Consumer Justice Clinic of the East Bay Community Law Center. And finally, Marisabel Torres, the co-chair of the Californians for Economic Justice. Now, I'll make a couple of opening remarks before I turn it over to the professionals, the advocates, the speakers who will take, and we'll all take questions from everybody. I have to admit, there was a large number of consumer and progressive organizations that were united to get this bill passed by the legislature and signed by Governor Newsom. What SB 616 will do at its very basic challenge is to protect somebody's checking account from being emptied from a debt collector collecting on a debt. You know, forever in the United States, we just let, and here in California, we just let debt collectors empty out people's bank accounts and just said, well, you owe the money, I guess that's the end. And these advocates came together, and we pushed this legislation across the finish line, which will protect $1,788, which is the amount that the Department of Social Services has determined a family of four in California needs to survive every month. Doesn't sound like a lot of money, $1,788, but this is the protection that everybody has. It's so important. It was so important in 2019, and it's really important now that that COVID has changed our lives, and who knows what's ahead. Already, we've had 176,000 people that have died. Our economy's been decimated, and has left greater numbers of Californians in feeling despair with rising debt and the need to increase something across the state to protect them. So as everybody knows, it only takes one overdraft fee, one sick child, an accident, or a parking ticket to trigger the disastrous domino effects. The protections of SB 616 will prevent that first domino from falling on so many families. Because of this law, tens of thousands of checking accounts in California will not be drained during these difficult months ahead. And something else, the amount that SB 616 protects in the bank will automatically increase every year to keep pace with the cost of living and rising costs that consumers are going to feel in the future. No one needs to come back in legislature 5, 15, 20 years and ask for more money to protect the little bit that people have in their checking accounts. And just in case you're wondering, the law is taking effect next week, September 1st, rather than January 1, which is the normal course, because we needed to give the State Judicial Council time to work out the forms and amend the necessary processes that people use to collect debt. So this law, unfortunately, doesn't erase any debt. That's what I'd like to do, but it will, and it's not going to promote fiscal irresponsibility that people are going to all of a sudden say, I'm not going to pay my creditors. But what it will do is provides an important layer of financial security for so many folks in dire need of help. The legislature and the advocates today have listened to Californians, and we've responded with some assistance for these predatory lenders that are out there. Times are tough, folks. Sure, a few people have made some bad choices, but most people are struggling, not because of some moral deficiency or lack of work ethic, but because the tax system is really skewed to reward a very few wealthy folks. And now that the pandemic has hit, the work is so much harder. People need all the help that they can get, especially people who have lost their income and still have a lot of bills to pay. So next Tuesday, September 1st, we're going to increase some protection. Maybe next year we'll go after interest rates that credit card people charge, or payday loans, maybe put those people out of business. But let me introduce first the director of the California Low Income Consumer Coalition, my good friend and colleague, Ted Mermin. Ted?
Thank you, Senator Wieckowski. That's very high praise. I count you among my friends and colleagues, sir, as well. And when Bob Wieckowski tells you that he's going to do something, pay attention. And I'll make sure that I talk a little bit about something that Senator Wieckowski might be up to this year as well. But about Senate Bill 616, again, my name is Ted Mermin. I run the California Low Income Consumer Coalition. CLIC is a co-sponsor of SB 616. It's a coalition of 14 legal aid providers around the state who bring to Sacramento the voice of their low-income clients. Next Tuesday, that's September 1st, as the senator said, marks the end of a 4-year effort to bring a measure of relief and comfort to Californians who are facing financial calamity at the hands of debt collectors. It marks the beginning of an era in which the Golden State will take better care of the people who live here. It's a day to be thankful to our legislature, our governor, for acting to make our lives a little bit easier. SB 616 is an example of what California can do when it plans for the future. When this law was signed last year, we knew it would be a crucial safeguard for the tens of thousands of Californians each year whose lives are turned upside down when debt collectors suddenly seize every penny in their bank accounts. But now, as the senator mentioned, we are staring at an unprecedented economic crisis brought on by a pandemic and wildfires. Millions of Californians face extended unemployment and are taking on more and more debt. What does that mean? It means, thank goodness, Senator Wieckowski and his colleagues had the foresight to pass a law that makes sure when a bank levy happens that there is some money left to pay the rent or the grocery bill. Now, this new law holds a powerful lesson for us today, and this is, I think it's worth following up on what the senator said. This week, the legislature will decide whether to pass 2 very important laws. The first gives California a robust enough agency to handle the financial fallout of the current economic crisis. We know right now that in every financial crisis, predatory lenders come out of the woodwork promising debt relief or a quick loan that is just going to put desperate people into a deeper hole. How do we build a sturdy fence on top of the cliff, of the financial cliff, instead of waiting for people to fall off and building a hospital to put them together at the bottom? Well, we pass a budget trailer bill, Senate Bill 819, 819, that would give the state's financial regulator the authority it needs to protect all of us. Second, this week, the legislature will also decide whether to look forward and plan for the near future, the very near future, by enacting a bill to regulate debt collectors in this state. We know that debt collectors generate more consumer complaints than any other industry in this entire state, indeed in this entire country. We know that financial crises bring out the worst in debt collector conduct. We know that at least 35 other states require debt collectors to have a license. And finally, we know that someone has at last taken on the task of writing and negotiating a bill to get the job done. Senate Bill 908, SB 908, is authored by none other than Senator Bob Wieckowski, a true champion of consumers. The legislature needs to pass that crucial bill. It is always harder to legislate prevention rather than cure. It takes vision and courage to do that. It is because of that kind of vision and courage that we are here today celebrating the passage of Senate Bill 616. This bill will bring peace of mind to millions of Californians who have had to take on debt. It will bring an end to the current regime through the end of this month that allows bank accounts to be totally cleaned out, resulting in terrible financial turmoil and too often in homelessness. September 1st will be a good day for the tens of millions of California consumers who are struggling with debt. It will be a good day for California. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Ted. Our next speaker is the policy advocate for the Western Center on Law and Poverty, Jessica Bartholow. Jessica?
Thank you, Senator. Thanks for having me. You know, I want to just start off by saying the Western Center on Law and Poverty, we're a support center for the legal services throughout the state of California. And you're going to hear from Sharon a little bit later about the kinds of calls that she gets and her clinic gets from people whose accounts have been levied. But because we're out there and we're working on this, a lot of times we're in partnership with low-income people who are in these very situations. Some of us, like myself, come from low-income families and have had the experience of having a bank account taken to zero or been criminalized because we didn't have money in our accounts. This fall, or this spring, just before, just as the COVID was hitting, I got a call from a woman who I know through her advocacy at the Capitol. She's low income, she has one child, and she's disabled. And she was going to her bank account. She goes in person to withdraw the money. And when she got there, the bank account was frozen. She was destroyed. She cried for 20 minutes. She was outside the bank. She was with her daughter. She was in shambles. And she had me on the phone. I can't tell you the kind of devastation. It's a physical kind of shock to the system to go to your account so you can get out money, pay your bills, and it's not there. That's what we let happen to people in the state of California. And you would say, well, that's their fault. They ran up the debt. Let's talk about what that debt is. In California, a huge majority of the debt, one of the top debts that there is out there, is medical debt. Medical debt. Debt people incurred because they got sick and they couldn't afford the care without going into debt. Credit card debt. You might say, oh, credit card debt. Well, what were they out there shopping for? In my family, we went into debt on credit cards to buy food. And I can't tell you how many people out there today in California are doing the same thing to prevent hunger for their family. And that's the right thing to do. This bill doesn't erase that debt. It doesn't say, oh, you don't have to pay it back. It just says that when you do pay it back, you could do so over a time period that makes sense and without zeroing out your account. This bill is not only good for people who are in debt, it's also good for their economy, for the local economy, because when you keep money in the hands of low-income people, they spend it in their local neighborhood. When this money is collected by debt collectors, these are some of the largest companies, Fortune 500 companies in the country. That money doesn't stay in the local neighborhood. It heads off into Beverly Hills and Wall Street. So if we want to continue to do the right thing, like SB 616, this bill is going to help so many people. I wish it had been in place sooner, and we tried, and the senator certainly tried to do that. But we need to keep doing bills like this, and we need to get the word out that this protection exists so that families like mine, like my friend who's called me the other day, that they don't have this horrible situation happen. Eventually, many of them are eligible for the money to come back, but only after months of trying, and only after legal services. So this bill was voted as one of the best legal services bills last year because it will free up the hands of free attorneys for low-income Californians so they can do other things rather than chase down a $70 bank freeze. So we just want to say thank you to the senator. You are an incredible champion, and to our partners around the table. We couldn't have done it without you. Also not here in the room today, just a shout out to the California Asset Building Coalition. And we had pro bono advocacy help at the end there with Manat Phillips and Phillips in Sacramento. And Delilah Clay was our pro bono attorney who helped us with some floor votes. So thank you so much. And let's go out there and implement this bill. It is my favorite day, Implementation Day.
Well, thank you, Jessica. And now let's turn to what do people say where the rubber hits the road. We're going to hear from Sharon Djemal, who's the director of the Consumer Justice Clinic at the East Bay Community Law Center. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, thank you, Senator. Before now, there were on average 110,000 bank levies every year in California. The East Bay Community Law Center, EBCLC, received hundreds of calls from Alameda County families who had their lives devastated by bank levies. Without any warning, a debt collector seized every penny in their account and left them scrambling, unable to pay their water bill, buy medicine, or put gas in their cars. However, thanks to Senator Wieckowski's bill, the vast majority of these consumers will now be protected from all ramifications of bank levies entirely. And unless the debt is due to unpaid wages or child support, all Californians will be protected from having their accounts levied to zero by private debt collectors. This law, had it been in effect earlier, would have protected all of our EBCLC clients who, because of the levy, had their rent checks bounced and became homeless after they received an eviction notice saying they had 3 days to pay rent or move out. It would have protected the dozens of EBCLC clients who were levied when it wasn't even their debt. The debt collectors just had the wrong person. And it would have protected the many, many EBCLC clients of color who, after already being targeted by predatory lending and facing discrimination from financial institutions, were pushed deeper into debt and had even less reason to put their faith in banks after their accounts were levied. And this law, as you've heard, is even more important than we had imagined in light of COVID-19. Unemployment benefits are not automatically exempt. So these benefits would have been stripped from consumers' bank account without notice and would have taken months to get back through the courts. But now, thanks to SB 616, thanks to Senator Wieckowski and the strong coalition of consumer advocates who helped write this law with our clients in mind, Californians don't have to sign a single form or file a single document in order to preserve $1,788 in their account. From September 1 forward, we are all automatically protected from having our accounts zeroed out by private debt collectors. So for all advocates who have been consistently hearing from devastated consumers whose bank accounts had been levied down to $0, leaving them with only the change in their pockets to pay for their basic needs, September 1 will mark an enormous victory for low-income California consumers. It is also a win for banks who can begin to rebuild trust with Californians who have previously been too afraid to deposit their hard-fought wages into bank accounts. Lastly, if anyone has questions about the nuts and bolts of the law, please ask after we're finished or reach out to me later on, and I'm happy to walk through how the process previously worked, why consumers were left without their exempt income for months and months, and how it will now work after this law takes effect on September 1. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Our final speaker is going to be Marisabel Torres, who's the co-chair of the Californians for Economic Justice.
Hi. On behalf of the Californians for Economic Justice Coalition, I'm happy to join you all in marking the approaching implementation date of this important law. The members of Californians for Economic Justice work to ensure that all Californians can live with economic security and dignity. Protecting money from debt collectors to meet basic living expenses is a consumer protection that low to moderate income Californians have needed for a long time. Debt collection lawsuits, and judgments are more common in communities of color due to systemic and historical discrimination in financial services, housing, and employment. Allowing debt collectors to empty a borrower's account only serves to exacerbate our racial wealth gap. Debt collectors have routinely weaponized the court system for their own gain, leaving consumers with very little to survive on after their accounts are seized. This creates a cascading effect of negative financial problems for consumers who can least afford it. After their bank accounts are levied and drained, consumers are often left with costly overdraft fees or account closures. If an account is closed because of a negative balance, this information will follow a consumer and can prevent them from establishing another account with a financial institution in the future. This can negatively impact their credit scores and credit report, harming their ability to secure housing, purchase a car, or even find employment. Without the exemptions that SB 616 will provide, this debt collection activity would continue to push people out of our financial mainstream. Further, without resources left to pay for housing and other basic living expenses, cleaning out a consumer's account can leave them vulnerable to homelessness. It's unconscionable to leave a person without the means to pay for housing or food, yet up until this law takes effect, it has been a business model that debt collectors have readily followed. It is especially critical now, as many people are facing increased financial stress due to the pandemic, that we keep more money for life's necessities safe in our accounts. Low-income communities, and especially communities of color, have very little margin for unexpected expenses and financial shocks. These households are already vulnerable. By keeping enough money to survive on, safe from being levied, we can prevent a bad financial situation from becoming worse. This law will not erase the debt that is owed, but it will prevent that debt from driving families deeper into poverty. And we're very happy to celebrate the upcoming implementation date with all of you. And thank you, Senator, for your leadership on this.
You're welcome. Well, there you have it. Some hope, some protection for Californians against economic ruin, with a lot of stuff to be distressed about. On Tuesday, SB 616 goes live, as they say.